What's up? In fact, it's Wolf with the Quarantine, and today I have a game for you by the name of Ophidian 2360 from Hack and Slash Games. Now, the box states that it plays 2 to 4 players. Playtime is about 20 to 30 minutes, and ages 10 plus. So, what is Ophidian? Well, Ophidian is an ECG, which is an expandable card game similar to Fantasy Flight's copywritten living card game, and it's different than a normal collectible card game where you buy booster packs and hope you get the right card, and you have rare cards, and yada yada yada. An expandable card game works basically exactly the same way as a living card game, where if you buy the next pack that comes out, you get a playset of everything that comes out. If I buy it and you buy it, we both have the same cards. So there's no luck involved of what you're going to pull, and you don't have the economics of a collectible card game. Thematically, Ophidian is basically Space Gladiator, where two factions pit their gladiators against each other and then they fight to the death. But it's sci-fi themed, so you have blasters and weapon, blades, plasma blades, stuff like that. Now, Ophidian is a reprint of an older game by the same name, but Ophidian, 2350. Basically, it was a CCG that had came out several years ago. I don't remember when it came out, and it died reasonably quick, and Hack and Slash Games purchased the rights and reprinted it as 2360. So let's go over to how the game's played, shall we? Alright, there's two things I should probably mention before I get started. The first one being, as usual, this is a review. It is not a tutorial. So if I do happen to skip over any rules, or if I do make any rules mistakes, this should still give you a basic idea of how the game is played, so that way you can make a decision whether or not the game is for you. The other thing I definitely need to mention is the playmat here was sent to me by the designer. I actually had got two playmats. I received two of the starter sets. And I should mention, if you get the game, you're not going to get, unless you buy extra, of course, you're not going to get these, and I dropped one, you're not going to get these rage tokens, you won't get these dice, and you won't get these tokens here. The only thing you will get are two starter decks, or one if you buy the single, and then the starter deck has cards to signify these, which I'll get to. Alright, now that that's out of the way, to get started playing a game of Ophidian, you're going to take out all of your gladiators and you're going to put them in either the action field or the supply field. And you're going to have, if I'm not mistaken, it's a total of 10 victory points worth of gladiators. And forgive me, the cards are sleeved currently, but you're going to have generally two different cards for your gladiators, and the cards are double-sided. So you have, let's see if I can get that like that. They are double-sided. So you have level 1 that you see up here, and then you have level 2, and then down here you have, where is she? Level 3 and level 4. So you're going to take your level 1 gladiators, you're going to put them out here with level 1 side up, and then you're going to put all the rest of them down here. So let me pull this out of the sleeve and show you what we're looking at here. So when you look at a card, up here you have the types of symbols they generate. You have their name, how many victory points they're worth. Any additional keywords would be here and in this area, what level they are. And then you have a bunch of different symbols down here. This is the general layout of all cards except for up here, and I'll kind of get to that. This would mean it is a negative action. This means you set, which is essentially tap the card. And then you kind of just read what it says. Now these down here, there's a couple different colors. You have red is health, purple is rage, which I'll get into what these are later. You have yellow is attack, and then you have blue is, there's like a blue one that comes over here, and that's defense, and it has a little defense symbol down below it. So anyways, I'll just leave the sleeve off of that. You have your gladiators here. Then you're going to set a marker of some kind on 0 for both the victory points and for the cheer. Then, whatever wave, which is essentially round, you are on, you will give yourself 10 plus the round number in resources. So starting out, you should be at 11 because you're on round 1. Now you're ready to play. Your deck in the starter sets are going to be 56 cards each. So what you're going to do is you're going to give that a good shuffle. And again, I have mine sleeved just because I try to sleeve everything if possible. And you're ready to go. You are ready to play a game of Ophidian. So you're going to have your, the strategy deck, your discard pile, your gladiator stack, which these are your gladiators, the level up cards for your gladiators that are already out here. And then you have your funeral pyre, which are when gladiators are killed, that's where they go. Then now you're ready to play. So what you're going to do is you're going to draw up to your maximum hand size, and by default that is 7 cards. So we're going to draw our 7 cards. 4, 5, 6, 7. Then you are going to draw 2 extra cards, and then now you will discard 2 cards. Or not discard, you'll put them on the bottom. So you're going to look through your cards and kind of strategize, okay, what can I do, what do I need to do, what cards don't I need, what cards do I need. And you're going to select 2 of them to, say, throw on the bottom of your deck here, and then now you're ready to play. So let's go over what a normal card looks like. So I just went over what a gladiator looks like. So when you're using one of these, this up here, well, there we go. When you play a normal card, this up here is how many resources, which is down here that I showed you. That's how many resources it costs. This is how much of these symbols that are required, which I'll touch on that in just a second. This states whether it's a positive or minus action. This is the type of card it is. These are keywords, and then down here is what it does, or sometimes it's just, like in this case, it's just some flavor text. This right here is that shield symbol that I was telling you about, so some of them add symbols. Then this is the, what is it called, maintenance cost for the card. So you're going to have to pay for this every turn that you have it out. So, let's put this back in the sleeve. Now what do I mean by this is what's required, but yet this is what it generates? So, in order to play this card, I have to have a gladiator, a single gladiator, that at least generates 2 of this symbol. But then I need another gladiator that generates 1. So, in order for me to play this card, she generates 1. So then I need another gladiator that also generates 2. I can't generate, both of these. No, those don't have that symbol. Well, we'll just give this example. Both of these together don't technically generate 1, or generate 2. These generate 1 apiece. So if I level her up, and flip her over, and then now she generates 2, he generates 1, I can now play this card. So you're going to determine who has flow, which is essentially initiative. So first round you're going to randomly determine who has it. And then you're going to go ahead and just play your cards. So it has a really neat mechanic with this game, that up here you notice this has a minus action, but this has a plus action. And then there's R's, which are reactions, and I'll get to those. So as long as I'm playing plus actions, so I could play this, and let's just say I'm able to actually play it in terms of resources and these symbols up here. I play this, and that's a positive action. So then I can play this. That's also a positive action. And then, let's see, I will do, I don't know, I don't have any more positive cards. So, okay, then let's say I take this, and I play this. This is a minus action. So I play this, because I played a minus action, it is now my opponent's turn. And my opponent does the exact same thing, and pays for cards that they play, and they make sure they're within their requirements. They're generating enough of these symbols, so then they can do something. And then if they do a minus action, and now is my turn. So there's a bunch of different types of actions, or different types of things you could do that are positive and negative actions. So if I take a gladiator and I retreat back into the supply field, that is a minus action. But if I advance, if I take her and move her up here into the action field, that's an advance, that's a plus action. If I attack, I'm going to get more in depth into attacking, but if I attack a card when I set it, that is a positive action. So you have quite a few things you can do, so you got to tactically decide who's going to go where, and cards are bouncing around and stuff like that. However, there's a couple caveats to that I'll get to, but you're able to do something that's called roaring and steal the initiative, or basically the initiative. For some reason, the flow. There we go. You're able to steal the flow, and I'll get to that a little more in a second. So, how does attacking work? So the way it's going to work is if I play this card and this card and this card, and I still have the flow, and I'll go, okay, I'm going to go ahead and attack with her. Now, I only have one playmat set up here, but the way attacking works is unlike games like Magic the Gathering or Yu-Gi-Oh or something, you attack the opponent's gladiators directly, because how you win is one of three different ways I want to say. You kill all their gladiators, you get to 12 victory points, you get to 15 cheer, or the other opponent draws the last or has to draw a card and cannot draw a card. And that's how the game ends. So I would take her and set her and go, I will attack that character. And then they have a couple options. So as of right now, you're looking at, she's got 7 life. I'll explain rage in a minute. And she does 2 damage. So I will attack and do 2 damage to the opponent's gladiator or minion. And then they have 2 options. They can either just choose to accept the damage, and that character you'll take the die and just put the damage on that gladiator. Or she can protect. If I'm attacking somebody in the opponent's supply field, they can protect somebody or protect them with somebody in the action field and not have to set it. So they'll just go, they'll take the damage instead. The other thing you can do is you can jump in the way of the attack. So if this was my opponent's card here, and I go, okay, I'll attack this person here, he can go, well, I will dive in the way. And there's an actual term for it. For some reason, it just eludes me what it's called. But he can tap this, and this character will take the damage instead. But now this character is set and can't be unset until later. So that's kind of how that works. But there's a little bit more to it. When I attack, I will generate 1 cheer because the crowd loves the fact that I charged in and smacked him with a sword or whatever. However, if they jump in the way and defend, instead of me getting that cheer, my opponent gets that cheer. So, what can you do with cheer other than, it has to increase to 15 to win as one of the win conditions? Well, how I was mentioning that, as long as you're playing positive actions, I play this and then I play this. After I do a positive action, whether it's advancing, whether it's attacking, whatever, my opponent can go, I will roar. And basically the crowd roars, distracts the opponent, they lose 1 cheer, and they turn the last action done from a positive to a negative, and now you steal the initiative, and now you can do your things. And then now it is just your turn until either your opponent roars, or you play a negative action, or you pass. And that's basically how the game is going to progress. I'm going to do my actions, it's going to go to you, you're going to do yours, we're going to bounce back and forth. And note, you never draw any more cards on your turn unless you have cards that say so, which I'll kind of get to. Once both players have done everything they want to do, and you both pass, because one of the actions you can do is I just pass. If I pass and then your opponent passes, the round is over, and then you go to the breather step, which I'm going to get to momentarily. I am going to, however, explain the one last thing here. What that little purple box is rage. So if your gladiator takes damage equal to, or total amount of damage equal to your rage, you get one of these flaming skulls, which again don't come with the game. You'll just mark your character with something. You'll put it on it, and now they are raging. Now, there's a couple things a raging character does. If they are unset and attacked, the opponent, or the gladiator that attacked them, also just takes a damage. The other thing is, if this character is set and is attacked, this character will just immediately unset. However, they won't take the deal the damage to the other player. They will just unset. But there's a couple things with that, is because if you look at her, she needs 6 in order to rage, but if she gets attacked again, she's just dead because she needs 7 life to be killed. So it's tricky. You have to kind of balance all that. But that's basically how this game is going to work. And if you notice, I started him with 1 because his rage cost is 0. So he just starts the game just raging. So once both players have exhausted everything they want to do, I tap and blah, blah, blah. And we attack, and we've got some damage on characters, and things got hurt, and whole 9 yards. Then we go to what's called the breather phase, which is right here. So you're just going to go down this list, which again, only if you have the playmat. You're going to determine the momentum. So everybody's going to add up the number of characters or the number of damage points that are across the field on gladiators, including dead ones. So in this case, I have 4, that's 8, 9. My opponent will do the same thing. They'll add up theirs. Whoever has the most gets the initiative. Then you're going to go to regenerate. So you will take your hand of cards here, and you will discard any number of these cards, and then you'll again draw back up to your maximum hand size, +2. I'm just going to kind of randomly draw some, +2, and then you will do the same thing. You'll go, okay, well, I don't want these ones, I'm going to put these on bottom. Then you're going to maintain, so that cost that I told you that's right here on a lot of the cards, anything that's still out on the field, like say I pumped this character, and let's see, this one here, I maybe pumped this one, and maybe this minion was out here. Which I should also note, minions can only be summoned to the supply field, and then they can come on out later. Most minions are negative action. But anyways, now once you're in the maintain, you have to pay the maintenance cost. So this has 2, this has 1, this has 1. So I would have to pay 4. Because at this point you're going to replenish your resources as well up to what it's supposed to be, which again is 10 plus the wave number, so we would go to 12 at this point. And I'd have to lose 4, so 1, 2, 3, 4. I start next wave with only 8 resources now, because I have to pay the maintenance cost for all these, plus maybe things I put on their side, making this potentially lower. And then you go to promote. So this is the tricky part of the game, where you have to really think about what you're doing. Because now you will promote one of your gladiators. So how I mentioned they have, oh, she's actually been on her level 2 side, but I have her at level 1, and so on and so forth. Remember, to play these cards, you need these symbols up here. So I could promote her, flip her over, she would heal 1 because I promoted her, and now she generates more symbols for me. Yeah, higher symbols. She generates green 2 and I can't remember the names of these. It's Biogen 2 and something 2. So that means that opens up the array of cards that I can now play. So I would do that, the opponent would do that. And then you maneuver, so then now you're freely allowed to go, okay, we'll bring these down here to start the round, and then maybe I'll put these up here. Because remember, if my opponent decides this little minion here is just really being a nuisance, he can attack him directly. But because I have gladiators up here, they can just defend and take the damage instead and not set. So basically they have to set something to attack. I can defend with this. This doesn't have to set, and now I have more actions than they do. So then the game's going to continue. There are a few other things. You're going to basically do a new round, just like I just kind of covered. And I know this is all over the place. There's quite a lot going on for a CCG here, or an LCG. But there's a couple other things that should definitely be noted. Only gladiators generate cheer. So if I attack with this minion does not generate any cheer at all, because he's just a minion. The crowd doesn't care about him. So if I attack with him, he's going to generate cheer. However, if my opponent were to dive in the way, say, with this here, they will, of course, steal the cheer. So because they this was theirs, they stole it, they dove in the way and stole the cheer from here. However, if I attack with this minion, and then my opponent takes her, say, on their side, takes her and makes her jump in the way, she wouldn't steal any cheer because the minion doesn't generate it in the first place. So there's a few other little nuance rules like that where, like I said, gladiators don't generate cheer, or gladiators are the only ones who generate cheer. Gladiators are the only ones who can jump in the way, so this minion couldn't jump in the way because that's just not something they can do. Unless, apparently, I haven't seen any, but apparently some minions can, because there's an FAQ that I was reading that asked that question specifically. Now, whenever a gladiator is killed, so let's say this one's killed, he's worth 1 victory point, so when he dies, the opponent will tick their little victory point marker up. This will go over here in the funeral pyre because it's gone. I should back up just a little bit because I forget to mention this all the time, but during the promote phase, each player should have a couple level 0 gladiators like this that you can also pay, and of course they have a maintenance cost, usually of 2. You can go ahead and just throw this out, and this character will generate a level 0 biodecay, for example. But it's just another gladiator and another guy that can punch for you. Just know you're going to have to pay its maintenance cost if it's still alive at the end of the turn. But that is really how you play Ophidian, so let's go over to my final thoughts, shall we? Alright, Ophidian 2360. Well, I'm going to start off by saying a couple things here. First and foremost, you're probably wondering who these guys are. We have Trevor and we have Zach. I've played my fair share of card games. I played Magic the Gathering back in the day. I played it actually when it first came out. I was in middle school. I played a little bit of Pokemon, played some Yu-Gi-Oh! I played my fair share of LCGs. I have Netrunner up there, the core box set. I have Game of Thrones card game here. I have a plethora of other card games here, but I don't really play a whole lot of them. I'm more of a board game kind of guy. So with that said, I've brought them on here because they actually mainly play card games.
Quite a few.
So they actually played the original Ophidian, which is right here, and they've played numerous times the new Ophidian. So I brought them on, so I know that's a little different than what I usually do. So this whole format thing is probably going to be a little longer and a little different. But I figure it'll give you the most information. So I'm going to start off by saying one of my biggest complaints, I guess you could say, about the game is the biggest thing I noticed is it seems to have a rich get richer and poor get poorer kind of mechanism to it, where once one player starts losing, and again, this is just from me, and I'll let them voice theirs in a second, that once one player starts losing, it's next to impossible to climb back. With that said, everything we say during this final thoughts is based purely on the starter decks, because we didn't have the time or the card selection for that matter, because we didn't have all of the cards available and everything to deck build. So we are based purely on those starter decks. So what do you think about that complaint?
I agree with that completely, especially during the last few turns. There's a huge feeling of just, if you're starting to get on the losing side, no matter which side that is, normally my side, there's a sense of hopelessness that the game will give you.
It's basically the scoop feeling in Magic,
yes.
when you're like, I should just scoop it all up.
Because you look at all of your options and go, no matter where I fight and where I hit, I'm probably going to go down on this one.
And a big part of that is that the cost on the cards, sometimes you'll have 3s or 4s in tech or biogen or something, and the hero you have, or the gladiator you have of that, dies, and now you only have level 1 gladiators, and you can only use the most basic of cards.
The last game we played, that's the reason I wasn't able to come back, is I did have some cards in my hand that would heal me up just enough to maybe survive the turn and barely scrape out a victory, but all of the cards that I had that could have saved me, I needed my dead gladiators to be able to play.
Exactly, because you spend the first few rounds maybe upgrading a single hero because you got a couple cards in your hand that could really turn the tables for a gladiator, and then they wind up dying due to superior strategy or focus firing or something like that, and you've literally just lost everything you're capable of doing at that point.
And normally, even with other games that have the level up style stuff, with this one, there's the saying, the cliche, don't put all of your eggs in one basket. Which normally that makes sense. Spread out the things, you're doing little things that make a bigger deal. But in this one, if you don't level up that one high enough,
best cards,
you just don't get your good cards.
No, because you have to focus leveling up one gladiator, because you only get 3 level ups during the entire game.
I mean, unless it happens to
progress further, which isn't, I don't see that likely.
I think out of all the games we've played, and I'm going to also state this out of the box, so most of my reviews I usually play about 3 to 5 times. We've probably played this one because we wanted to give it as fair of a chance as we could. We've probably played it a dozen times. Easily.
Without a doubt.
So, I mean, we've played this one more than I usually play a review copy of a game, and that's just with them. I've also played this with other people. My brother, my wife played it. So we've tried this quite a bit, and I think out of all of our games, like 2 have lasted longer than the 4 rounds. because it doesn't happen. Because once one player again starts losing, you don't recover very well from it.
True.
So because you're losing all of the abilities that you get. What are some positives, or do you have any other things that you want to touch on?
Not on that point. I will say that even though the rules are, I think there are some vague differences between the original, right?
Yeah. Did you mention we played the original?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
The original's rule book is awful.
We spent, when we first got it, what would you say, about 3 hours?
Easily. Yeah.
Just with a rule book each, just page by page, reading it word for word, and being extremely confused.
Yeah. It was one of those to where I think the book was making us go a bit crazy. It was painful laughter for some of it. The art's better.
The art is phenomenally better.
I'm gonna post up some pictures right here that'll show the comparisons between the old art, which you'll see first here, and then it'll go to the new art, which is phenomenally better.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Although I do like how they did a few homages to the old art.
Oh yes, a couple of the cards
Dripping
were
Leak.
identical, like Dripping Leak.
Yeah.
Now, the new rule book, where if you look at the old rule book, which I don't think is in this one, the old rule book is an actual little booklet, whereas this comes with its own series of problems. This is all of the rules that you get when you get the game. I was also sent, which I highly recommend that you find online, a pamphlet here that describes this in much greater detail. With that said, this technically does teach you how to play, but it's very difficult to read and it doesn't go in a lot of depth. There were a lot of times we're trying to find something on this and we go, screw it, and grab this and find it instead.
It is a really good quick start, though.
Yeah, this is a good way to just dive right into the deep end and go, but you're going to have rules questions, so you're going to have to wind up looking them up and stuff like that. So I recommend, if you can find something like this, find this.
And I am going to just personally say that with some of the rules, it needs to specify that even if it just says something along the lines of a gladiator can do this, sometimes it doesn't specify that minions cannot.
We actually ran into quite a few issues with that, where we thought minions generated cheer, and then people would just run away with cheer victories instead of trying to actually kill opponents' gladiators.
Yes.
One side note that a complaint that I had a little earlier is the amount of stuff that you have to keep up with. You have victory points, you have cheer you have to keep up with, you have your resources you have to keep up with, plus you have all the little symbols on all the different gladiators, plus all the symbols in your card, and all that. How do you guys, plus the two different playing fields that you're technically in, how do you guys feel about the amount of things that you normally would have to keep up with in comparison to the other card games that you play?
I disagree that it's a problem.
Fine, honestly.
Which is totally fair, which is why I have you guys here. Again, I don't play a whole lot of them, so I felt a little overwhelmed.
I would say, though, something that would be great for the game is a little 3-wheel dial, so you can keep track of it all on cheer on one side, victory points on the other. Yeah.
Wheel, basically.
Yeah. And then,
Also, a quick reference card would be nice to have just for the symbols, but after a game or two, it's really not an issue with us.
And that's another thing with this game. The games take a long while. Consistently, we even did the last one and timed it to make sure, not really table talking, just playing the game. It takes close to an hour and a half a game.
And mind you, when they did that, I let them play the last game because I pretty much I'd played it enough to kind of already know where I was going to be going. So I let them play, and I sat over here, I messed around on my phone, I didn't really interact with them much. They just sat down and just played the game. No, a little bit of table talk, but
of course,
within
it
reason.
counts.
Yeah.
And it took an hour and a half. When you put that into perspective for people who may not know, which I love long games. One of my favorite games is War of the Ring. That game takes 3 hours to play. The game I'm designing takes 6. So I like a long, involved game. But that kind of goes back to what we mentioned earlier. When you start losing, it feels hopeless, and
once you're 45
which, I mean, you could
minutes
scoop.
but when you're 45 minutes into a game and you're losing, it just seems like a waste.
Yeah, but then when you put that in perspective, say, hell, Netrunner takes like an hour to play, maybe. Pokemon takes, 20 minutes, 15, 20
right,
minutes.
yeah.
Magic takes 15, 20 minutes, if that. So for an LCG or a CCG, it's considerable in length, like very considerable, which is fine. But it's something that definitely needs to be thrown out there.
And keep in mind, we are just talking averages. It
Yeah,
varies.
of course it varies. You could have a deck that, of course, plays faster. Maybe if you deck build.
Blue
Oh my
versus
gosh.
blue.
Yeah, blue v blue games
Yeah.
that take forever. So, do you have any other negatives that you feel that definitely need to be pointed out?
I don't think. Do you?
Mhm.
I would love to do some deck building with it and try some more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it definitely would be interesting, but given review time frames, and I have several other games I have to review, it's not palatable to be able to try to deck build as well.
What I was getting at with the time that it takes to play, though,
No.
after you play a game, you kind of sit here and go, let's do something else for a bit.
Because I remember when I used to play Magic, you'd play a game of Magic, and when you're done, you're like, all right, we need to try that again, because maybe if I get different card compositions, or maybe something or another, because the games are so quick. Where this takes so long,
Yeah.
every game I played, it was like, okay, we finish this game, let's play something else.
Yeah.
So
And from someone who can have fun in a Warhammer tournament, which
Yeah.
is a day-long event,
yeah,
having the feeling of just, we can play something else for a bit after, means I'm not sure how a tournament scene for this game would feel.
exactly.
And I
And
hate to say
and
that.
being an LCG equivalent, it's an ECG, I think is what he's calling it, because Fantasy Flight, loves money and hates everybody
Trademarks.
else. Yeah, trademarks. So, yeah, I mean, using an ECG format, of course, he's wanting probably a competitive scene, and that kind of hurts that a lot. But let's go on to the positives now. I mean, because the game,
Okay, right.
it sounds like we're bashing the game, and we are a little bit. But the game does a lot of things right, like a lot.
Yeah.
For example, one of my favorites is the cheer mechanic. The fact that when the theme of the game, as I previously mentioned in my opening, is it's a gladiatorial fight in the future, essentially. It's like Space Gladiator. And it kind of feels like that because you have these starting gladiators pitted against each other in the field, and you have an audience around you. So when I run up and smash my sword into you and you take a sword to the face, the cheer just starts, the crowd just starts roaring.
The crowd just starts
And-
wooing, you might say.
Yes.
Wooing, which is what we were doing. But it starts cheering, and you get cheer points that you can then, as I mentioned in the overview, you can use that to steal the flow from the opponent because the crowd loves you so much and they're distracted and whatnot. And that's such a cool mechanism.
Yeah, and I like the fact that if your opponent attacks you, your gladiator can throw themselves at it, and the crowd loves that as
And,
well.
yeah, because you're putting on a great show, and which is part of the point, and I love how it does that.
I do say cheer is probably the deck I would aim for if I build.
Yeah, like something that tries to go for a cheer victory because A, again, thematic.
Yeah.
And B, it's just a cool mechanic because
It is.
it's also versatile, and then because you can win by getting the maximum cheer, it makes you think twice about trying to spend it. You're like, well, I'm almost there. Do I want to steal the initiative from them? But if I don't, I might lose my last gladiator or something.
Yeah.
It also has, as I mentioned in the overview, and I would feel kind of like a Hearthstone style resources where both players get a set number of resources every round, and then you play based on that. What do you guys think about that? Because I know Magic the Gathering, you can get mana screwed constantly,
True.
Yeah.
and it is one of the most infuriating things you can possibly encounter.
Absolutely.
I do very much like any game that does not have land in deck.
Yeah.
It's a good system.
I like the resource system. It works perfectly fine. It actually makes you have to think about your moves. If you have a couple big cards, you can't just throw them all out turn one because then your opponent starts getting advantage in minions or pumps or something else, and then you fall behind because you really wanted to say draw some cards or deal some damage.
Which is probably my biggest praise of this game. Kind of leads into it is. The biggest thing that I can definitely praise this game for. If you hate card games in general, even a deck builder, you hate any card game that you're relying on the luck of the draw. You're hoping you draw the cards that you need. and you don't, and it's annoying. This game does a lot to mitigate the luck factor in a normal CCG and LCG, where you draw up your maximum hand size +2, then you choose what goes on the bottom. At the end of the round, you discard as many cards as you want and do it again. So that way you can try to tailor your hand to what you need to do that round, and that's phenomenal.
And it does also, at least a little bit, mitigate the problem of, oh, I have this card, but my Tech Gladiator's dead.
Yeah.
I'll just discard this Tech card, and I can draw more cards.
Or turn 1, you get that 3 Tech card that you need a level 3. I'll just hold on to this for a little while until, hopefully, my Tech Gladiator doesn't die, but until you can use it. So,
and there are a decent bit of cards that will just fetch for cards as well.
In some of the starter decks, anyways.
Yeah,
There's I think it's this one here that relies on the Biodecay cards. There's very little. So like the only draw cards this deck had, you wind up having to discard a ton of cards in your hand to do it, and the later on in the game that you do it, the less cards you get, and that's kind of annoying. But again, deck building can eliminate a lot of those issues.
True.
Yeah.
So overall, is there anything else that you feel that should definitely be mentioned during this?
I would like to say I adore the theme and the way that this has been like rekindled, and I would love to see maybe like a comic series based on it.
That would be pretty cool.
I would read that in a heartbeat.
If you might see here on the side, you can see these player mats that are here as well. I was sent these, and they have all of the symbols that I'll probably actually just post a picture up here.
Okay.
They have all the symbols on them, which is kind of what I was touching on, the overwhelming amount of just things you have to track, and the game is very, very symbol heavy. If you do get the game, I do recommend picking up a player mat to go with it, because it has all of the symbols on it that you could just look over and go, what does this symbol mean? Okay, that's what it means, and keep going, versus having to find the symbols in these here, and it's kind of a headache. So, overall, would you guys recommend Ophidian?
Ophidian 2350? No.
Not at all.
Yeah, which is the previous one.
Yes,
Yeah.
but 2360. Personally, I don't know if I can suggest it, but saying that, I do plan on buying it all. So,
I mean, so it was at least enjoyable enough to
yeah, I would happily
definitely play, but don't run out and pick everything up like he's going to.
Right.
Of course.
It's not first priority. I just have a problem.
As somebody who's not super big into card games in general, unless it's a deck builder, I also can't really recommend it due to, again, honestly, the biggest flaw is the poor get poorer mechanism. There is no bounce back mechanism. When you start losing, you're going to lose. You might have to just scoop, which isn't fun for anybody. Even the person winning or losing, you don't want to scoop.
It's like, I hate it when, like, I have 2 of his gladiators down, and then I have, like, 2 gladiators, and then several minions, and I just look at his field and go, okay, how am I going to win this turn? Do I want to do this or this? It's just not very fun.
Bad to win in that situation.
Yeah,
you know
because
what I
I
mean?
can sit here and go, okay, I can just attack you 7 times and you can't intercept or block me, or I could play this card that just kills everything, and it just doesn't actually seem fun.
Right.
So would you recommend it?
I don't think I'd recommend it, but I would play it again in a little while. You know, just occasionally, maybe, let's play Ophidian.
Yeah, I could see playing it like once personal decks are built every other month, something like that.
Would you say it would be fair as a quarantine brand, maybe pick up a couple starter decks?
Yeah.
But and then deck build with that, and then use that to slowly expand maybe if you're really into deck builder or not deck builders, CCGs or ECGs.
I would definitely say pick up one just to give it a shot.
Anyways, that is the review for Ophidian 2360. I have a Patreon right up here. If you'd like to support the show, any amount of support is appreciated. I have my Twitch and Twitter down in the description as well. I should be streaming more games. He's one of the guys I play Overwatch with quite a bit, and him occasionally when he decides to get on.
Right.
But anyways, I will see you guys next time in the quarantine.